The first question in this episode comes from a nail professional on the west coast of the United States, in Washington State. She asked this: how do you feel about the risk of cross-contamination from dipping in paraffin wax? About 12 years ago, I spoke to someone who I consider to be a very careful researcher, and someone who had thoroughly examined this very issue. His research revealed that bacteria and fungi are not at all likely to grow in these paraffin baths, probably because the water content is so low that infectious organisms could not survive. He also theorized that the wax seals around the hand to prevent bacteria or fungal organisms from escaping into the wax. Now, this makes a lot of sense to me, and I agree with his findings. Interestingly though, in only one case did he find any infectious organisms in the paraffin bath. Understanding how this happened is very interesting and important for you to know about. In this one case, the paraffin was badly contaminated and looked extremely cloudy. The cloudiness was due to a large amount of water and other contaminants in the wax. If water gets into paraffin, then some microorganisms may be able to survive. But this was an extreme case of contamination, not what would normally ever occur. How did the paraffin become so cloudy and contaminated? The reason for this extreme contamination was the salon owner. That's right. The owner of the salon had instructed the nail technicians to save the wax after removal from the hands. It was then thrown into a container, and each morning the previously used wax was then remelted into the paraffin bath as needed, just so the salon owner could save a little money. Of course, this is clearly improper to do, and certainly against the paraffin manufacturer's directions. In fact, this was a blatant misuse of the products. Only fresh wax should ever be put into a paraffin bath. All used wax must be always disposed of after a single use, because paraffin wax is not reusable. After completing his testing, this researcher concluded that when a paraffin bath is regularly cleaned and the wax is properly disposed of and not reused, it is extremely unlikely that infectious organisms will be able to survive to cause infections. I'll add that if a client washes and dries their hands before the service, then the potential for contamination becomes even less likely. These conclusions are also in complete agreement with other research that I've read on the subject. Other studies of paraffin collected from salons and tested for contamination of bacteria or fungi have found no kinds of contamination at all. Therefore, this leads me to support the conclusion that dipping in paraffin baths to perform salon services is a safe practice. But I'd like to add a word of caution. Common sense dictates that clients with open sores or visible signs of infection should not have these services. The researcher I spoke about did not indicate that this was a concern of his, but I'm adding it out of an abundance of caution, and to remind salon professionals that they should not perform services on any client with visible infections of the skin or the nails.